Every day, thousands and thousands of planes take to the air. Most of these flights depart with no issues, only turbulence usually being the worst thing passengers experience. These flights are tracked meticulously from the moment the plane takes off to the moment it lands. These days, with all of the modern technology available to us, it's virtually impossible to lose a plane. Except that sometimes it still happens. The story of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is one steeped in both mystery and tragedy. On the 8th of March 2014, the Boeing 777-200ER took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport with 227 passengers and 12 crew, heading for Beijing Capital International Airport. Around 38 minutes into the flight, the plane disappeared from air traffic control, but was picked up on radar about an hour later, off course and heading out across the Andaman Sea. So what happened to Flight 370? Why did it disappear? And where did it end up? It's one of aviation's biggest mysteries, but today we'll try to unpack some of the theories relating to Flight 370's disappearance, from the logical to the downright bizarre. Let's start with what we do know about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, also known as Flight MH370. First of all, we know that nothing at all seemed to be wrong with the plane, either during takeoff or throughout the flight. The weather that night was clear, and no distress signals were ever communicated from the plane. As far as airline flights go, Flight MH370 seemed completely ordinary. However, things did not remain ordinary, and we know that Flight MH370 was completely lost by radars somewhere near Penang Island, located in northwestern Peninsula Malaysia. The plane's transponder was also not functioning, so for all intents and purposes, the plane was gone. It's still unknown if the transponder was intentionally disabled on purpose. The Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, ACARS, were also not functioning. This is an automated system that provides information about the plane, such as speed and location, to various flight tracking authorities and airlines. As the flight left Malaysian airspace and flew into Vietnamese airspace, the pilots of Flight 370 never established contact with Vietnamese air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh City. Another pilot from another plane tried to contact them, but according to this pilot, they heard nothing but mumbling and static. Despite this, there were no signs of a Mayday distress call. Many more calls were made to the pilots of the flight as soon as it was determined that Flight 370 was missing, but every single one of them went unanswered. The flight path of Flight 370 is also very strange. Instead of traveling on its designated route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, the plane made an unexpected turn halfway through the flight, flying back over Malaysia before flying out into the open ocean on autopilot for hours. The plane's change in route was done manually, meaning someone had to purposely change the direction the plane was traveling in. But to this day, we have no idea why. The plane was initially considered to have crashed somewhere in either the Andaman or South China Sea, but further analysis indicated it may have come down in the Indian Ocean. The way the plane crashed was described as uncontrolled by researchers. We also know that everyone on board the flight is tragically considered to have died, making this event the deadliest flight in Malaysia Airlines history until the events of Flight 17. In terms of search efforts, we know that any major attempts to find the plane in the ocean haven't produced many results, although some debris from the plane washed ashore in the Western Indian Ocean in both 2015 and 2016. The original search was also taking place in the wrong area, and it wasn't until data from the flight was analysed that searchers were able to have a clearer idea of where the missing flight may have ended up. Unfortunately, this lost time meant that the chances of finding the plane's wreckage, and in particular its black box, which could have provided valuable information about what exactly went wrong, were very slim. Malaysia also didn't provide all of the information they had about the flight's disappearance at the start of the investigation. For example, their military picked up an unidentified plane, which was in fact Flight 370, but did not request that the plane be identified. They also did not reveal they knew the plane's flight path was changed until after the initial search in the wrong area had been concluded. Finally, we know there are many theories about what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 and that there is still no official answer. This is probably the most chilling and most unfortunate part of the whole story, that in modern times it is still possible for planes to simply vanish as if into thin air, with no way for us to get the answers we so desperately desire. Now that we've discussed what is known about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, let's discuss what isn't known about it, mainly why it disappeared. Theories about the plane's disappearance range from a hypoxia event to a terrorist attack to a fire. Oh, and of course, one of the theories involves the king of conspiracy theories, aliens. Some of the original theories about the plane's disappearance involved some sort of malfunction or even a fire on board. This could have led to the equipment being powered down and also to the crash. However, both of these theories are said to be incorrect according to the official report about the incident released by Malaysia in 2018. These also don't go very far to explain why the plane suddenly changed course, or why, if there were any problems, no distress calls were ever made. So if the plane itself wasn't malfunctioning in any way, what else could have caused it to disappear? Next, people began pointing the finger of blame at the people on board the aircraft. There are several ways that human interference could have led to the disappearance of Flight 370, and all of them are, shockingly, deliberate. Richard Godfrey, an aerospace engineer who is part of the independent group of scientists working to solve the mystery of Flight 370, says that planes can allegedly be tracked using WSPR radio signals, otherwise known as the Weak Signal Propagation Report Network. However, all of this research is still unverified, and what Godfrey was detecting could also have just been other interference. According to Godfrey, the pilot of the plane, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, made lots of turns and changed speeds several times during the flight. Godfrey says that this was done to avoid giving a clear direction of where he was heading. If this new evidence is true, it backs up a long-held and incredibly grim theory that the reason for Flight MH370's disappearance was a murder-suicide. Because the last communication from the plane's pilot, Captain Zahari, was "Good night, Malaysia 370, some have taken this to mean that he was actually saying a final goodbye before committing suicide by crashing the plane. This is supported by some claims that Zahari was suffering from problems in his personal life, and rumors that he made no plans for the future following the flight. Although in a book about the subject, there is a claim that Zahari had an upcoming dentist appointment. There's also the very real fact the plane's flight path was altered significantly, and there is no way that could have been caused by anything other than someone deliberately changing it. It's also likely whoever changed the plane's flight path was acting alone, as it's highly unlikely both of the pilots would have been involved in a joint murder-suicide pact. William Langewiesche, in a story for The Atlantic, paints a picture of what the final moments of Flight MH370 may have been like for the passengers. The cabin would have been depressurized, causing a hypoxia event, which is where the cabin loses pressure, causing everyone to become unconscious. This was one of the original theories as to what caused the plane to crash. If this did happen, thankfully it would have meant those on board died a relatively peaceful death before the plane crashed into the ocean. Whether or not the hypoxia event was caused deliberately or accidentally is still up for debate, but it's still the current official theory by the Malaysian government. Although the Malaysian government says the pilot was passed out as well, and nobody crashed the plane on purpose. Another theory that puts humans at the center of blame for Flight 370's disappearance is a hijacking, although this is another theory that leads to a dead end. As already mentioned, there is no evidence the pilots of the plane had any existing mental health issues, and neither did any other crew member. Surveillance footage taken before the plane's departure also didn't show anyone acting strangely. So if the plane wasn't hijacked from within, what if it was hijacked by people who weren't even on it? That's a theory believed by many, including Mahathir Mohamad, former president of Malaysia. The Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot is a system that is designed to prevent hijackers being able to take control of an airplane. Once the airplane detects the pilots are no longer in control, the plane lands itself safely in a designated area. This system is not currently on any commercial planes, but conspiracy theorists believe it may have existed on the MH370 flight and is responsible for the plane's disappearance. This uninterruptible autopilot system may have been hacked remotely by someone outside of the plane, causing the plane to crash. Mohammed claims that Boeing and certain agencies have the capacity to take over uninterruptible control of commercial airliners, of which MH370B777 is one. And what were the hijackers' plans for the plane, you may ask? Well, just like anything to do with the disappearance of flight MH370, there are theories galore. The plane may have just been crashed deliberately into the ocean, or it may have been taken somewhere. One of the places conspiracy theorists claim flight MH370 was flown to was Diego Garcia, a tiny island in the Indian Ocean that has a US naval base. At the time of the incident, it was rumored that the pilot of the plane was practicing the maneuvers required to land on such a small runway on a flight simulator, and also practicing the journey required to get there, although this later turned out to be incorrect. Why would flight MH370 be taken to Diego Garcia? Well, some people believe that the plane was swapped with what we know as MH17, although it's unclear why. Or the flight may have been intended as a kamikaze to destroy the base at Diego Garcia, and it was shot down by the US military before it could get there. Of course, all of this is denied completely by the US military, although eyewitnesses still claim they saw a plane that looked like flight MH370 in the area, and the debris from the plane that was found later is fake. Another place the plane supposedly traveled to is Russia's Baikonur Cosmodrome, currently in use by Kazakhstan. Allegedly, the satellite data from the plane was actually faked to create a false trail that would lead the investigation in the wrong direction, and the wreckage in the ocean was planted. The reason why? Russia wanted a distraction while they annexed Crimea. Neither of these theories hold up to much scrutiny, especially considering no terrorist groups have come forward and claimed the disappearance of flight MH370 as their own doing. One person, calling themselves Landlord, proposed online that the disappearance was the work of a mysterious group known as Black Hand, but no information about this so-called terrorist organization has ever surfaced. Boeing also stands firm on their assertions that none of their commercial aircraft are fitted with the uninterruptible autopilot yet, and also that it's hack-proof. A few of the theories mentioned before are at least somewhat believable, despite the little proof to support them. To wrap up this video, let's talk about the ones that really are not believable. First of all, some think the plane may have disappeared into a black hole, despite the fact wreckage from the plane has been found. Some believe aliens had something to do with it, because every unexplained mystery always has to involve aliens in some way. Then there was the theory that the plane exploded because its cargo containing fruit and batteries mixed together to create a deadly bomb, even though the cargo on the plane was all carefully stored. Of course, there are also many alleged sightings of the missing plane as well. One came from a British tarot card reader who says she saw a plane on fire while on a journey around Southeast Asia. She's convinced what she saw was flight MH370, although if she did see something, it was in the wrong area. Countless internet sleuths have pored over satellite imagery and turned every shadow in the ocean into an alleged sighting of the missing plane. Someone in Australia was even trying to convince the public that he knew where the plane was, and would tell people as long as his Kickstarter mission to find the plane was funded. Even today, the investigation into the disappearance of flight MH370 has never really stopped. We still haven't uncovered the wreckage of the plane, nor do we have a clear solution as to why the plane crashed. The official reports put out by the Malaysian government have no conclusions, and lack of evidence makes finding answers to this mystery difficult. What we do know for certain is that the disappearance of the plane is a tragic event which has permanently changed the lives of many grieving family members. If we do ever find out more about the disappearance of Flight MH370, the best thing about it will not be that our questions are answered, but that the families of those lost can finally find some closure. What are your thoughts about the strange mystery of Flight MH370? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one.